Hey, welcome to another episode.
You say that all,
one.
like, dreaded.
Oh my god. Another episode of Unraveling with Jamie and July.
Yeah.
I'm Jamie.
I'm July.
Woohoo! We're both here.
We're both here.
Kaya the cat's here
You
too.
think we'll ever record one where it's just one of us?
God, I hope not.
Yeah, that'd be strange.
I mean, you can if you want to.
I don't think so.
I think that'd be weird for the vibe.
Just a touch.
Also, it wouldn't make sense. It's like Unraveling with July and Jamie, and then one of us just isn't here.
Jamie's
what a
not
lie!
here today.
What a lie! People will feel lied to.
I doubt that, but
I would.
I've heard a few people do it though.
Oh,
like
probably.
that.
Yeah, of
so
course. I couldn't imagine. I tried. Look at
We're
this.
already
We're off topic
topic
already. We don't even know what the topic is. We didn't even tell them. I tried to do a podcast where it was just me, but I mostly interviewed people because just me talking. I mean, I'm not, weirdly enough, I'm not much of a talker most of the time anyway.
Yeah.
And so it was just weird. It was weird. I had fun, but it was weird.
Okay.
I laughed at myself a lot. Like, I think I remember sharing with you the first day I did it. I just laughed all day, and it was a really fun day.
Which is awesome.
But
yeah.
So on that side note, what are we talking about today?
What are we chatting about
on
today?
This another episode of Unraveling.
Yeah, like, is it dreaded? You usually like Friday podcast day. You're like,
I'm just joking around.
I know. I know.
With people.
Well, today we're talking about something that's both liberating and challenging. Letting go of relationships to make room for healing and growth. We'll explore how the people we connect with often reflect our past selves, our wounds, our patterns, and why moving forward sometimes means making space for new aligned connections. It's not easy, but it can be necessary at times. So let's dive into how to honor the past, embrace the bittersweetness of change, and trust the growth that growth always leads to more fulfilling relationships. Yes, I read that off of because guys, I can't remember that whole thing.
Yeah, we can't remember what we're talking about.
And in fairness, while we say that, we got sidetracked before we even began.
Yeah.
So,
that's why we need notes.
We should say today we're going to try to talk about.
That's what we should say.
That's really how
be more honest with everyone.
Yeah.
Really.
Today we're going to try to talk about
this. Yeah.
And
but
it's
before
a bit of a heavy subject.
It is.
Yeah.
And before we try to talk about that heavy subject, we're going to play our little game that we always
and. Oopsie.
We always throw these guys in our show notes, this little game that we play from this company called The Skin Deep. Mm-hmm. So if you want to check them out, and maybe, they are in no way supporting this podcast, and we just like them.
Yeah, we might try some new games.
Maybe that would be a good idea too.
Yeah.
Never know. Like improv. We'll do voices and accents. She's so on board.
Well, I mean, we do accents when we do our test.
It's true. Our sound test. We did. Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, hello, darling.
It's true. We do. We should save some of those and just make a little clip for everybody.
Yeah, because they are silly.
Okay, so we're doing really great today, right now, staying on track. Okay, this is our question for today. Why do you think we get along so well? So curious.
Why do I think we get along so well? Well, I think
we're so similar.
We're very different. We're like, we have some stuff, like core stuff of how we are as human beings, I think, but we are so different, and just the way we live and our upbringings are very different. Why do we get along so well? Well, I think we do have a genuine, unconditional, like, love and acceptance for one another. And I think that is a key. But also, I mean, in in alignment with what we're discussing today, I think that one of the reasons why we have been able to stay, bonded like we are through so much growth and healing is because we actually allow for that within one another. Like, oh yeah, like you're very much a different person from the person I first met. Oh my goodness. Like, what was that? Like 14 years ago or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I
you're
was like,
like,
when,
holy
which time?
moly, so different. You're very different from that person that called me in to speak in front of that mental health group. And the person that came to me for their first energy healing, like, and I know that I've changed in our our journey together. And I think allowing for that. I was actually reflecting on this last night in regards to my marriage. And, we offer each other the grace of growth and change. And I think that that's a huge thing, because I think you offer me that grace too. We also really enjoy some similar things. Like we enjoy going out and going on walks and having little adventures. And we enjoy just laughter and play a lot. Yeah. So,
and I think our differences actually make our friendship interesting too, right? Where it's like, I think like there's a lot. I don't know if you learn much from me, but I know I learn a lot from you. So maybe it's one-sided. I don't know. But I think
I learn from you.
Yeah, because I think we both see the world in a very or not the world, but I think we see things in very different ways, and I think that helps keep a lot of our conversations interesting and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, both pretty easygoing. I'm reflecting back to like a lot of our just like stupid adventures. One that's coming to mind is when we went down the muddy road. Like,
yeah, because you love that one because of my silliness.
It's funny. It's so great. I mean, no, okay. We were coming back from a weekend retreat, and I was like, oh man, because I knew you really liked the Dunk River. And I was like, I had recently just walked down this heritage road, which was a muddy road. It's not a road that's like used anymore. And I was like, oh, I really want to show her this, because I think you were like, hey, like if you want to go for a walk or something on our way back, like let's do that.
This was a long time ago too.
This is like 4 or 5 years ago. And so I was like, oh yeah, like, oh my God, there's this beautiful road we can walk down. And when you get to the end, there's a little bridge and you can just watch the Dunk River. And it is a beautiful river. And so we walked down it, not thinking about the fact that it was, I don't know.
It was super muddy.
Everything had just melted, and it was a dirt road. And I don't remember what I had on my feet, but I know you had moccasins on your feet, and I felt so bad because like the whole time we were walking out, because like it was muddy as shit, and your moccasins were getting very muddy and wet.
It took a long time for me to clean those up.
Yeah, and I was like, man, like we can turn back. And then I had pulled into the end of the road where it was hard. And then for some stupid reason, when we were going to leave, I pulled ahead to turn around in a field. And
I was like, why'd you do that?
Growing up here, I should have known better. I really should have known better. You don't tempt the mud fate gods on the island here.
But you had my handy dandy method.
Listen, it was great. Okay, this is still one of my favorite memories, because I got my ass stuck in a field, and July gets out of the car and is like, listen, we're going to get out of this, basically. And she's behind the car, tapping the ground with her foot, being like, you got to go here. It's solid here. It's solid here. And we got out.
We got
out reasonably quick.
That's the thing, is people mock some of my silly ways, and then
I wasn't mocking.
I'm just saying.
I just enjoyed it thoroughly. I was fully confident in it. I was like, she knows what she's doing. You were out there stomping on the ground with confidence, and it got us out.
And we didn't have to call anybody to tow us.
Exactly.
Or anything, and we were like, yeah. No,
and like
power it didn't take the woman.
Didn't take us long either. We were out of there in minutes.
Yeah.
And we were stuck.
We were really stuck.
You get in mud and you're fucked.
Well, especially here, because it's like expand. Like
it's bad.
nasty. Yeah.
It's bad. You just go down.
Further and further. I've actually
Mm-hmm.
seen trucks here go be halfway, like the truck bed
So
is
I think,
in the ground.
100%. I think that story there is a good reflection of, the trust we have in each other.
Yeah, definitely. When I'm telling you, no, you're going to actually back up just a little
and
more into this mess.
Non-judgment, you could have been like, you dumbass. Why did you pull into the field?
For help.
You're dumb. Why did you pull into the muddy field? Could have went down that road.
Which clearly you had received that kind of reaction from people before, because I remember once we were out of it, you were like, thank you so much for like being patient. Like you definitely were. Somebody had barked at you before.
Oh, who hadn't?
Over stupidity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole other.
Which it wasn't stupidity. It was just absent-minded. Yeah. Really, we were in a bliss bubble of having been on a weekend retreat.
Yeah. And nothing could touch us.
And it didn't. Mud. Well, it really didn't.
True. We got out.
Yeah.
So. All right. So you got a question and a story today. So now back to what are we talking about? Talking about, hey, it's funny that question was the question that leads into this episode, talking about letting go of relationships.
Yeah. So
that being said, too, I think we've both been committed to growing and evolving together, and even though our journeys are very different, and we're obviously always in different places, because nobody's in the same place at the same time ever with anyone. Yeah, I think that's been
it's been an ongoing, yeah, for sure.
I think that helps in relationships.
It does help. We definitely are in our differences. Yeah, we admire our differences, and we leave the space for one another to grow and evolve and change, and we love each other through those changes. And when we have had little hiccups in our relationship, which we have, all relationships do. I think that's another topic we can get into here with this subject, just as in relationships with other women. It's so often that when there's a problem, it's just like, well, that's it. That's done. And I think that that's very sad, that a lot of people approach it that way. Like, you can't have a fight with your friend, a fight, in quotes, a disagreement, a falling out, if you will, and then come back together, offer forgiveness and love. And I mean, like, you got into this together. Now, that doesn't always work, because people do grow apart.
100%. And I think we were talking not too long ago, too, and I said something about like how it also takes two willing participants.
That's just it.
To come together.
Yeah.
When there's been a hiccup or there's been a whatever. Yeah. You both, whatever kind of relationship, you both have to be willing and 100%. Want to come back together to be like, let's talk about this. Let's work this out. Yeah. Whatever.
I tend to be a very willing participant.
Yeah.
I have, in my experience,
me too. I just
tend to that the majority of people are not.
Yeah. No.
And that people's feelings get very jaded. Forgiveness does not come easy for some reason, for most, and allowing for grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that being said, I have had issues holding on to something that I need to let go of, because realistically, the relationship has played out. It is time to close that chapter and move on. And I do get very, when I let someone in, I do get very attached, and it is often very challenging to let someone go.
Yeah.
Then that's why we're talking about this today, because I think it's challenging for most of us to let someone go. I've encountered it with many people I work with, that they really struggle. They're trying so hard to work on themselves and to grow, and they're holding on to relationships that no longer serve them. And they're spending their time with people that are not growing. And you do have to surround yourself with people that are on a similar path and that are allowing you to grow.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just not possible, unfortunately, with certain relationships. They see you how you were, and they can't change their mind about that. No matter how much time passes, they really struggle to, to accept your growth and your healing. They really struggle um, to not bring up the past versions of you, um, that maybe were, a little more challenging of a person, or or had shortcomings, or, um, yeah, it is truly a problem that, when that happens, and you have to really look at those relationships and say, what am I doing here? Is there room for this relationship to actually continue? Because the truth of it is you may have to let them go.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's really hard especially when you love someone, you know? Or if you've been in the friendship or marriage or whatever partnership for, I mean, my goodness, decade.
Yeah.
Or, it's challenging.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of grief in it.
Oh,
And
for sure.
so, it's no wonder that people struggle. But unfortunately, some of our old relationships are holding us back. And it's part of the growth and healing process. And if you're really lucky, it won't be very many of the relationships.
Yeah.
So, have you ever felt like a relationship no longer fits who you are becoming? That's the first question. I think we've already answered it, but
I think we've established.
Yeah, like, absolutely. And like, what was your experience in this? Like, just what can you give some insights into what you maybe picked up on why it wasn't, why it was no longer fit who you were becoming?
Wow. I feel like for myself, and I don't know if everyone, has this experience, or, I'm sure some do, but I feel like for me, I almost had to do like a purge at like a certain point in my healing journey pretty early on.
Well, also with your being, having been, had an addiction. Like, now, because I think that is a struggle for people who are addicts.
For sure.
That's really challenging. It's like you're taking so much out of the life, but you can't hang around with people that you were previously partaking in the addiction
No,
with.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, for me at the time, like when I got sober, I didn't really have like a bunch of friends or anything.
You weren't in that party mode. Yeah.
But my partner was also an addict. So
there's
that was kind of the, you know, beginning of the end right there.
Yeah.
For that relationship.
If they don't want to make those changes and grow and heal. Yeah.
And then there was other elements too, I think, for myself, where like I was still living in the community I'd grown up in, and there were other unhealthy dynamics between me and family members. And so, yeah, it was just kind of like, I think what I started to notice really, I think, within all that was just like, I think I just really started to notice the toxicity. I don't think I started to notice how unhappy I was, because that was the reason I started, going to healing and working on myself anyway, because I was unhappy. But I guess I couldn't pinpoint exactly reasons why, and I didn't know that my life was going to have to change the way it changed, if that makes sense.
I don't think that anybody does. And
yeah,
I think
like I
that's
didn't.
why it's such a struggle.
Yeah, like I think I very much thought I could just change myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that might almost had this like naive thought, I guess, that like my external world would move along with me, but not necessarily have to completely change.
Well, is it fair enough to say that you just basically never thought about it?
Never thought about what?
Like you
Like
didn't
which?
think about your external world much. You were
No.
just thinking
Well,
about, I
exactly,
need to
right?
make
No,
changes.
exactly. And no, I absolutely like, when I got to that point in my life where I was just like, I have to change. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like that was a place of like desperation
Mm-hmm.
of like, yeah, no, I wasn't thinking about what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Um and what that was going to look like at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just knew I had to change.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, this is sort of a side note, but it certainly plays into this particular topic plays into healing from addiction
Mhm.
very much so. Like,
Mhm.
because how is it going to be possible for someone who is struggling with addiction to then make those changes for themselves, do that healing and growth, and then maintain it being in the same environment that they've been in and
Mhm.
hanging around with the same people and having the same temptations and all those things that they were seeking to abandon,
Mhm.
essentially. Like
Mhm.
they're it makes it very challenging. and
Yeah.
and it's not, obviously addiction is it's a big thing
Mhm.
to overcome.
Mhm.
But this applies to any type of personal growth and healing, really.
Mhm.
Is you have to really look at the relationships in your life. That is a
Yeah.
big part of healing.
Yeah.
And you've got to get really real with yourself. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's not going to be something you want to look at. It's
Yeah.
going to be really unpleasant and uncomfortable. And you are going to have to say goodbye to some people.
Yeah.
Or it could be any number of things. You could have to say goodbye to a place you're living,
Mhm.
or a job
Mhm.
that you have,
Yeah.
or there's multitudes of things that you have to evaluate that you might have to let go of. But letting go of people, that's really the most challenging part,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about like what you went through with a marriage.
Mhm.
And I mean, I remember in the early days, like there was no sign at all that you were going to split from
Mhm.
your husband. And
No.
it was something that eventually sort of
Yeah.
unveiled itself as like, oh crap,
Mhm.
there's no other option
No, I
here.
think sometimes it still surprises me. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the aftershock.
And it was really
It
challenging.
was really
I
challenging.
mean, a
Like, I
marriage is like
remember.
the worst of the
Yeah.
situation that you would have
No.
to let go of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. No, and I remember the moment when I knew that I was
Mhm.
gonna have to leave,
Mhm.
and the fear
Oh,
that I felt,
can't even imagine.
like, was almost, like, just nauseating.
Yeah.
And I knew I had to say something because I remember it very specifically because it was the day after I'd gotten home from a weekend away,
Mhm.
and a few of us were chatting
Mhm.
on a messenger stream, all just checking in on each other and whatnot, and I knew it was like the conversation that was happening in the stream that we were all chatting in wasn't directed at me, but whatever was being said, it was just like light bulb after light. Like it felt like it was all being directed at me.
Mm.
And I was just like sitting there, like reading these messages. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then I knew I had to say something in that moment. And I think, and on the stream, I'm pretty sure I remember I just said, I don't think I can do this. And
I'm vaguely
yeah,
remembering
and
this
I knew
now.
I just had to like, and it was completely out of
Yeah,
context
because I
because
think I
no one,
went
you
over
were the
and
only, yeah,
messaged you, and I was like,
popped over
"Do what? What are you
privately.
talking about?"
Yeah, you
Yeah.
popped over privately and was like, what do you
Are
need to
you
do?
okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was very much not okay.
Yeah.
But I knew I had to say something or I might have chickened out
Yeah.
in that moment.
No, and it's really it's really impossible to fully step into the person that you're, becoming
Mm-hmm.
in your healing journey and your journey of evolving and personal growth with a partner or even a really close friend
Mm-hmm.
who just isn't interested
Yeah.
in growing, isn't interested at all, can't even acknowledge the fact that they need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, that's a really hard one.
Yeah.
Like there's the people that just can't accept your growth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one aspect. And then there's the people that have absolute they're not doing their growth. They're not doing their healing work at all. Like
Yeah.
just not tuned in. And then there's the people that it's a combination of both entirely, and those are the non-negotiables. Those are the
Mm-hmm.
ones that you really do have to walk away from, right? Because that was your situation. Like it was not only lack of acknowledging that they needed to heal and
Mm-hmm.
grow and like no effort towards that, but also um they weren't really accepting your changes either
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
fully, right? Like there were issues
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. There was like silent disagreement.
Mhm. Lack of support.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. No, I had a
So,
thought and it disappeared. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
No. So in marriages, it's like, it's really challenging. I mean, like I said, I was just reflecting last night on my own marriage and our journey. And I was just thinking how blessed I feel that the one thing, like I know for sure, because we've had lots of ups and downs, but the one thing that's always stayed consistent is that we do support one another in our growth. We allow for that, and there's patience
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Um, it's not like I'm just, instantly like, oh, you're not on the same page as me, so
Mm-hmm.
peace out. Like that's unreasonable. Thankfully, we've both always been striving to figure ourselves out and
Right.
better ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why we've managed to still stay together, or otherwise it simply wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it comes to friendships, that's a whole other thing too, of letting go of people that you deem you have to wake up and you realize are unhealthy for you. And
Mm-hmm.
there's the the days before you're even doing conscious healing, when you're with people that maybe, you don't value yourself, you don't love yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're surrounding yourself with people that are, well, for lack of any better word, that borderline abusive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I'm saying borderline. They're abusive.
Abusive. Yeah.
They're abusive
Yeah.
to you. And
Yeah.
they know they can be.
Mm-hmm.
And, and it doesn't mean you don't love them. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's actual love
Yeah.
there for sure. But at some point, you wake up to the fact of, wait a second, what am I tolerating
Mm-hmm.
here? I'm worth more than this. I need to let this person go.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have this person in my life anymore.
Yeah.
And it can be really painful too.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Even
for
though
sure. Yeah.
you know that this person's got to go. Like
Mm-hmm.
they've done some things to you that are terrible. But
Well, there's so many factors that come into play with relationships because I think relationships are a great little swimming pool for all of your doubts and fears and insecurities and wounds and
absolutely.
everything to just bubble to the surface. And it's so, it's like there's so many reasons for why it can be so difficult to leave a friendship, a relationship, like a
Mhm.
whatever. And there's so many reasons as to why you've tolerated it and how you've gotten into that. And
Mhm.
like, it's a clusterfuck.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because when you meet someone new and you bring them into your life, like they're getting to know the person that you are at
At
that
that moment, yeah.
time, at that moment, and where you're at in life right then.
Mhm,
And then as you grow and change and heal and mature, that's not always going to you're not always going to be a match, or
yeah,
you're going to realize that it's an unhealthy situation
yeah,
completely. It's not even about like oh, that we don't like the same things, or
Yeah.
it's like legitimately like, wait a second. When I first got into this relationship, people I allowed people to walk all over me. I allowed
Mhm.
people to take advantage of
Mhm.
me. I didn't feel I was worthy of more. I didn't feel I was worthy of love.
Mhm.
Um, I had codependency issues. Like, and in order to even get to address any of those things, you have to do a lot of healing.
Mhm.
Like to super even acknowledge I mean, sometimes I look back on certain relationships that have faded out in my life and I'm like, oh, like I see it way down the line
Mhm.
after the fact. Like, oh, no wonder that didn't work out.
Mhm.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, look at that right there. I stood up for myself,
Mhm. Yeah.
so yeah, but it is challenging, and letting go of people. Like, our next question is, why is it so hard to let go of people even when you know it's for your growth? It's
God, I mean, there's so many reasons, I think, too, because I mean, you can think about your own internal stuff and
mhm.
all of the reasons and all of the thoughts and
Yep.
beliefs and whatever, but then you also look at the societal pressures,
Yep.
and especially, well, I shouldn't say this. It might be the same for men and women, but women are very much taught to be nice.
Mhm. Oh, yes, that's a
Um,
problem.
so there's this whole aspect too of like, oh, well, that's mean. It's mean to, you
Mhm.
know, kind of cut someone out of my life or whatever, all the
Absolutely.
things. Then
Absolutely.
you pull family in there, and there's a whole different ball game of like, oh, well, you don't do that to family, and family's family, and all of these things.
Oh,
And
yeah. Yeah.
there's so many different factors
Yeah,
that come into
because
play.
doesn't just apply with friends. Sometimes you have to actually cut family
Yeah,
members out of your life.
yeah.
And sometimes
And there's
that's,
fear of judgment,
oh gosh, yes.
backlash,
Oh, yeah.
all of the things. And I mean, I think for me, one of the things, I don't know, it's just like you really, really have to put yourself first, is really
Mhm.
what it comes down
It
to.
is.
And
Absolutely.
I mean, I hope for a lot of people that they don't allow themselves to get as sick as I got, right?
I
Where
was
it's
just,
like,
yeah.
where you get to that point where it's like, this is do or die. Like,
Mhm.
you have no choice in the matter, really. I mean, you do, but
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Neither choice is easy, but one will, eventually, you'll feel better,
Absolutely.
basically. Like you're putting yourself first. You
And
are saving your own life
and it's
here.
not to say that, like, while yes, you will feel better right away,
Yeah,
it's not to say that there's not going to be a lot of sadness and grief
100%.
that comes up. That's the thing, and I think that is part of why we hold on to people that aren't good for us,
Yeah,
or are holding us back, is because we know somewhere inside there's going to be a lot of
yeah.
sadness, grief, and loneliness
Mhm,
potentially. Um, you know, I remember hanging on to one particular person for a very long time, and my whole reasoning and rationality behind it was, well, this person knows my whole story.
mhm,
This person knows my whole story. I just
mhm,
kept saying that over and over, and there
mhm.
was no the relationship was unhealthy.
Well, I mean, I even said that about my marriage for
Mhm.
quite a while, where I was
Mhm.
just like, because when I was really, really struggling to let go of this person, where I was just like, well, it's the only person who knows me. Like, it's the only
Mhm.
person who knew me before I started healing, I think was what I would say quite often,
Mhm.
and then I eventually got to the point where I was like, why does that matter?
Yeah.
You know? But
Yeah.
it's almost like letting go of a part of yourself too.
It really truly is. Yeah. It is like letting go of,
And
yeah.
I think there's that whole other thing that comes into where like I think sometimes we feel like we aren't allowed to be sad when we're the ones who make the decision to leave,
Oh gosh,
right?
yeah. And I can say for sure, that is so not true. And, for anybody who is going through this, or, needs to let someone go, the sadness is, it's okay. And it's part of the process. The grieving of a relationship, even when you're the one that chooses to let it go, that's perfectly natural. And it may take some time. Like, grief takes time.
Mhm.
And, grief is part of loss. And you are, despite the fact that you're choosing it, you're still losing this person. I mean, you chose to divorce, but you got grief. You had a lot of grief you dealt with, right? And I know I had a relationship, a friendship. I just, I loved this person so immensely much. Like it was just beyond. And I was the one who made the first, I initiated the break. And I mourned that relationship. I really did. I mean, it was, for lack of any better description, it was ugly grieving for probably a couple years. Like it really affected me. And that's okay. It's okay. It was also part of my growth, like doing reflection on, well, what part did I play in the relationship?
Yeah.
What did I allow in the relationship? Why was the relationship that way? Because clearly it takes two. It's not like you can just say, oh, well, they treated me terribly. They spoke down to me. They were taking advantage of me, whatever the story is for that particular dynamic where you're pointing a finger, everybody has their own level of responsibility within a relationship. So why did I allow them to treat me that way? Why did I think I was unworthy of better? Why didn't I stand up for myself? Why didn't I use my voice? Like those are the things, that's part of the healing process when you leave these relationships, be they, toxic or just no longer serving you. So, yeah, and it's challenging, and it hurts sometimes, and you feel a little lost and out of sorts because sometimes, you really associate like if you've given someone so much of your time and energy, it gets tied up into your identity in some ways,
Oh, for
right?
sure. Yeah.
So, which, yeah, I mean, especially with partnerships, marriages, like it's very challenging. Our next question, let's see. Can we see letting go not as a failure or loss, but as a natural part of evolution? And I think that that's an important topic to cover because it's come up with having social media in our society, is that we stay connected to people in a long term, right? And or if you live in a place like this, a small town, we have very small communities, close-knit communities here on this island. And I'm sure there's a lot of places in the world that are like this, where there are just these small communities that are close-knit, or you form communities even within a city. You grew up with these people, you went to school with them, it, and you stay with these same people, even though you've grown apart. Your lives have drifted.
Yeah.
And, with social media, we especially stay connected to people. Like, it used to be if you say moved to another place far away from where you grew up, you were maybe going to exchange some letters here and there with someone. Maybe you'd have some phone calls, from time to time, but you weren't seeing them every day. But now, with how the internet works, you can literally see the same people that you've known since birth and grown up in the same community every day. And for some people, I'm sure that that's all lovely and wonderful and works fine. But the majority of people, we are changing constantly. So it's not really reasonable that most of us would have relationships that last our whole lifetime.
Yeah.
That's just, it's not realistic.
Yeah.
Because we're so different in so many ways. And for those that do have those relationships, and you have, these friend groups where you're all healing and growing together, I mean, fan-fucking-tastic. That's beautiful, amazing. But it's just not the reality for most of us, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that, we do see the letting go of the absolving of relationships as failure in our society, because look at how we treat divorce. What do we call a divorce? We call it a failed marriage.
Valid.
Right? That's what we say. It's a failed marriage. And and it's interesting because we don't necessarily apply that to friendships. It's not like if a friendship breaks up, be it even long term, you go, oh, a failed friendship. But instead, we have a lot of bitterness tied to it. And it's very strange the way we approach the breaking up of a friendship. There's a real coldness.
Well, we don't actually
to it.
even allow for breakups to happen either.
Oh,
they're not treated the same, as in like you're not like the grieving. You're not like,
oh my gosh,
you're not really allowed to grieve. Then there's also the aspect of like, okay, for example, you go through a divorce. Most people who care about you aren't going to come give you details about your ex-partner every time they run into them or see them or something like that. And yet,
thank you for bringing this up.
Or like your friends aren't going to be like, gosh, like you guys will get through this. Like, you guys will work it. Well, especially if we're talking about, take this to
thank you for bringing this up.
You could say that about a relationship, but people do this with abusive friendships.
Yes.
They're not treated the same as, say, an abusive relationship. Whereas in like, nobody's going to tell you, any good friend is not going to sit there and be like, oh, if you left an abusive marriage or partnership, they're not going to sit there and be like, oh, you guys will work it out. You should go back. I hope you guys, find your way back to each other.
Yep.
But we do that in friendships.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And it's been done to me quite a bit. And it's really been damaging. It's really been hurtful.
Because it's almost like there's not this
see
comprehension.
This was actual abuse.
Exactly.
I'm owning up to my responsibility. Like, I have codependency issues. I had some serious things I was working through. When I met this person, I was very weak and it was a very different person. And I allowed for this. And then this person was not a good friend, period. And then, then you get met with other friends like, oh, you'll work this out. You guys will come back together. And it hurts really bad because you're like, it took me so much courage, so long. I actually love this person. Like, I love this person. And it took so much for me to break off from this friendship. And I'm not getting any respect from my other friends to say, to just offer space there and support, to not mention it, to not bring it up, like, and certainly not to say things, honestly, very toxic, like, oh, you guys will work it out. Oh, I hope you guys work it out. It's like, no, you would never say that if this was applied to a marriage. If this was like that, if it was an intimate relationship like a marriage, you would never say to one of the spouses in that relationship, when they were just, being completely not met with equality in any way. Oh, you guys will work it out. When they were being spoken to at times, like in such cruel ways. Oh, I hope you guys can make amends. And you sure as heck would never come to that, the spouse, and say, oh, I saw so-and-so, they're doing great. This is what they're doing. You wouldn't do that.
No.
You just simply wouldn't. And yet we do this with, well, I mean, I don't know that everybody does this.
It's done.
It is done.
It happens.
It happens.
More so.
It happens. And I've experienced it more than I'd like to say, honestly, especially for some reason in this sort of middle chapter of adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? It's not something I can say I experienced necessarily when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I don't know. It's like we get into some sort of this really strange area as women
Mm-hmm.
when we're in, middle
Life.
adulthood,
Yeah.
sort of like 30s and 40s with
Mm-hmm.
friendships. We really have a hard time making friendships. Um, we really struggle with connection. And, once we find it, it can, if it's toxic and we need to, like, we don't handle
Mm-hmm.
it well always.
I think
And I don't think that's not everyone, but this
no.
is a problem that's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
And not acknowledging that letting go is necessary sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like that
Yeah.
it's not even it's essential.
Well, and I think that's the thing with it. It's like whether you agree with it or not, whether you
Mhm.
agree with someone's choice or not,
Mhm.
there should be support because,
Absolutely.
like walking away from people in your life is not an easy thing to do.
It is not an easy thing to do. No. No, it's really not. And it is a common thing that needs to be done for people that need really deep healing.
Mhm.
This is not uncommon.
Mhm.
If you are struggling with codependency issues, if you have CPTSD, if you struggle with just loving yourself and feeling worthy, you are going to put yourself into relationships, be they marriages, be they, just intimate partnerships, um, business partnerships, and friendships. And that's where we miss it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
friendships that are not healthy for you.
Mhm.
That is going to happen more than likely
Mhm.
because you're what is it? We receive the love that we feel we deserve.
Mhm.
Right? Isn't
Yeah.
that the quote? So that applies to not just, we always go to with those types of quotes of romance.
Mhm. Mhm.
But this is across the
We
board.
attract the love we think we
We
deserve.
attract the
Yeah.
love but we also
We
tolerate
tolerate.
the love that
Yeah.
we think we're worthy of and
Yeah.
that we're deserving of. And, you know, and we do this in the intimate relationships, we do this in our friendships, and we
Mhm.
do this with family
Mhm.
members.
Mhm.
We allow family members to treat us terribly too,
Mhm.
that where when you start to heal and grow, you go, whoa, wait a second, why am I letting this family member speak to me this way?
Mhm.
Why am I not standing up for myself?
Mhm.
And I know you and I both have dealt with this
Mhm.
in our lives. Like,
Mhm.
we also got, we have the issues that we have because of the people that raised us.
Mhm.
Sometimes, a
Mhm.
lot of times, that is where this is stemming
Mhm.
from. That's why we're healing in the
Yeah.
first place.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
think there's this belief too that like when you I guess like remove someone from your
Mhm.
life that that's like a mean and horrible thing to do and
Mhm.
that like you're I mean, I know that's what I've been met with
Oh, me
in
too.
like a judgment sense
Me
where it's
too.
like
Yep.
yeah, you're mean and horrible person who's just running through life cutting people out of your life.
Yep.
Um and it's like first of all first of all, I think if you don't know the story, well, you don't have a right to judge ever, but like if you
Mhm.
don't know the story and like how much you've tried to set boundaries, how much you've tried, you know what I mean? Like all of these
Oh,
things.
exactly.
And it's not like cutting someone out of your life is this big horrible thing that you have to do or you have to be like an asshole and have like this big falling out or fight.
Mhm.
Like this can also be just very quiet
It
and
can be
subtle
very
and
silent. A
silent
silent
and
stepping away.
yeah, like a silent stepping away.
Mhm.
But I think there's a lot of judgment around
Oh, I would agree. I would agree.
removing relationships from your life.
I would agree, and
Which
that's not even what our topic is
no,
per se, but yet such a valid point and
which once
something we
again,
should
which once
discuss in
again we
this.
don't really do in intimate relationships if you break up with someone. there's like this understanding that, oh, that happens.
Yeah.
You break up with people, but
Mm-hmm.
it's treated very differently for friendships and or family members.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I've been shamed for things for having to walk away from family
Mm-hmm.
members. I was shamed a lot for that, and I had to.
Mm-hmm.
I truly had to. And, you know, if looking back now at all that has played out over the years and where my life is today, looking at looking at some of my, I guess, well, I'll just say my siblings' lives
Mm-hmm.
and how theirs have played out, I know that I made the right decision. I know this
Mm-hmm.
with all my heart. But my goodness, the judgment I received in doing it, and the shame that
Mm-hmm.
was put on me of how could you? How can you walk away when, this person needs you, needs your help?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're supposed to honor them. You're supposed to be there for family. Family doesn't turn its back on family, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like I had to love myself enough to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes so much courage. Like, do you think that I don't love them? Think again. I love them
Mm-hmm.
immensely. It's just that I happen to love myself more.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I can do what I need to do in life and maintain, give the energy that's needed with this person. I just can't. I
Mm-hmm.
can't do it. I've tried too hard, too
Yeah.
long, you know.
Yeah.
And and I've had a lot of people who have cast that shame on me try to say that, well, they know what was happening,
Mm-hmm.
and this person didn't deserve this, or it wasn't that bad, or whatever. And it's like, really? You didn't live in my
Yeah.
household. You didn't hear what
Yeah.
was being said. You have no concept of what I was dealing with behind closed doors
Yeah.
with this person, or the struggles that were constant.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even if you don't live with the family member, because it can happen with just a toxic relative that you meet at different family functions too. I
For
mean,
sure.
God
Yeah.
knows there's a lot of different reasons why we have to cut people out of our
For sure.
lives.
Yeah.
So, and you know, it it's another thing. Like, again, you would never ever question someone leaving a marriage,
Mm-hmm.
saying it was toxic, I had to get
Mm-hmm.
out of there.
Mm-hmm.
You would never say, "Oh, but really was it? Are you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sure? Did, but what was really
Mm-hmm.
happening?" Like, come on.
Yeah.
But yet we do this. We do this with family members, um, and the absolving of those relationships, and then the friendships. And it's bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes the letting go so much more challenging
Mm-hmm.
because you know
Because
you're going to get judged.
well, yeah, because then it's like on top of what you're already dealing with your own,
Yeah.
struggle with this, your own grief, you're also
Hmm.
not being met with any support. And
None.
then so on top of that, you now also feel like a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we also, even when we approach marriages, we think like let's just say you're a friend with a married couple, we think we have to choose sides.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that plays into all of this too, is like, let's just say it is within a family, and this is all theoretical, but
Mhm.
let's say, you have a brother that is just toxic and you don't want to talk to that brother anymore. You just can't, because, it's just there. He's just not, it's not good. It's not
Mhm.
healthy for you mentally. It's not healthy for him.
Mhm.
You're at different places in your growth. You're walking away.
Yeah.
And then you will have um these these other family members who are sitting there saying, like, well, as if they have to choose one of you.
Mhm.
They have
Mhm.
to side with one of you. They don't want to let the brother go.
Mhm.
So you've just made things difficult for them. And it's like, why can't you just offer support to both of us here?
Yeah.
Isn't that what love is about? Just be supportive. It's not like you have to bend over backwards or anything, but just be supportive and be
Yeah.
respectful of that there's something going on here that you don't quite understand.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You don't actually need to understand it. we should support each other more through these transitions because it is part of the healing and growth process, and we're not allowing for it.
Yeah.
Generally in our society.
Yeah.
And especially, I mean, I think with family members, it's generally a little easier when it's on the outside because your friends do tend to be more supportive when you cut out a family member. Like they're like, oh, but when it's with friendships, you get no support much. Hardly any at all. I mean, thankfully, I do with my family, and I'm sure others do. Like my family supports me, and thankfully, because my goodness, it doesn't again
Oops.
it yeah you're
I knocked
knocking
over a
things
jar.
over. It doesn't make the letting go any easier,
No.
and letting go is necessary. And I don't really quite understand why everybody is so hell-bent that these friendships have to be mended. And it's funny for me to say that truthfully, because you know this, Jamie, that I'm always the first one to try to mend it, to try to apologize, to try to say like, okay, let's have a talk, because these are the reasons why we've had this problem that I can see right now. Do you want to talk about this and try to move forward and repair this, to work on our relationship? And,
I think there's like a lack of like understanding that sometimes things can just end and there is no toxicity. There's no, like whether there is from the other person or not, that's
neither here nor there. No.
Your concern.
No.
Or like whoever, like there can be peace.
Yep.
There can just be an ending because it's time.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where things get muddled, is because I think a lot of people almost have this like fear or this worry of like, oh, gotta fix it.
Well, gotta fix it. And I think, oh, I'm gonna have to choose. This has put me in a difficult position, so I'm gonna have to choose. Yeah. Very challenging. So, I mean, our whole topic is about letting go, and yet we've gone down all this of the side stuff, and that's part of why it is so challenging to let go, because this is what you're witnessing out there. You're witnessing the lack of support. You're sitting there and you're going, oh my gosh, this friend is not healthy for me. This friend really makes me feel like crap about myself. This friend, all I ever do when I'm with this friend is party. I feel like I can't be myself anymore around this friend because I've changed so much. So I feel like I'm kind of being fake and putting on an act of who I used to be. Yeah, I feel drained. All these things. And then there's this part of you that's also going like, oh God, but what am I supposed to do here? You feel a bit trapped because you're like, I mean, usually there's more friends involved or people involved in any relationship, right? And you're sitting there going, oh God, well, what will they think? How will they accept this? Will I be just completely shunned from the entire friend group? Will I lose them all? There's a lot that goes into that. And that's why letting go is so challenging. On top of the fact that the whole reason you were associating with this person, you had a relationship with this person, is you actually loved the person. You had a connection at one time. You loved them. You have history. So of course it's hard to let go. It's not like it's easy to get divorced. It's not like it's easy to walk away from your family.
Well, and it also doesn't mean that you stop loving them.
No, or stop caring. No.
Yeah.
But in that being said, there's also the need to respect the boundaries, like we were saying before. While you still love them and you still care about them, you also don't need to hear about them. You don't need to hear about what they're doing in their life, and because it was hard enough just to walk away in some of these relationships. So we need to have more respect for others in the letting go process. I think that that's one of the biggest things that's causing so much anxiety about letting go too. Like it's difficult because you love them. It's difficult, but there's anxiety because we're not handling this well in our society. We talk about it. We say that you need to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to let people go.
Mm-hmm.
We say it all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yeah.
We're always changing.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to let people go, but we don't really respect it and
Mm-hmm.
follow through with it. There's a
Yeah.
lot of judgment surrounding it, and from others and of self.
Yeah.
And that feeling of failure, like we were saying. So yeah, is it time for us to fuck off?
Yeah.
Pretty soon. It's been about an hour of this.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In context, that's probably so random to feel, oh, is it time for us to fuck off?
Yeah. We have Jamie very like gently puts up her middle finger, telling me that it's a 1 hour.
We've reached the 1 hour mark.
I can actually see it right now because we're doing that. We have a timer running.
Yeah.
So see, you flipped me off for no reason.
Oh.
How dare you? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you. So yeah, relationships often mirror who we were at the time we formed them, our wounds, struggles, and insecurities. It's very important to remember this in the process of your healing and growth in regards to your relationships. It is truly part of the process of healing, is reflecting on where your relationships are at across the board, not just your marriage, what you have tolerated with not perhaps most of us struggle with boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
let's face it. So it is very important because those relationships are built from a person who isn't the person you are becoming or have become. And so yeah, when we start healing, those dynamics can feel misaligned or even unhealthy. And boy, can they.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, it's also challenging for others to accept your healing, which we've talked about in this. Like, it can be really challenging for other people to accept your healing because they feel called out oftentimes in where they're at as well. And they may become quite volatile in it, they also will challenge you. It's kind of like these little roadblocks I found through healing. I know, for myself, I've encountered it with my family as I've been healing and growing. And there's just been certain times where they think that I'm the me before the healing. And it can be very challenging. So, when with your family, you have patience with them and stuff. But if a friend just simply will not accept your growth and keeps referring to who you were,
mm-hmm.
you need to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
You really do, because that's not healthy. So, why letting go is so hard. We have so much guilt, fear, which we've discussed, and nostalgia often makes us cling to connections. I mean, we struggle with nostalgia in our society. I'm sure it's probably an episode we will do at some point. And so it's a lot to let go of those connections when they no longer serve us. And then we have the cultural conditioning that teaches us that letting go means failure or betrayal of another person, which is sort of funny because it's not like we go into a friendship and we like take vows, right? It's not like we make like with a marriage, we stand in front of people and we take vows to one another and make promises, and we don't do that with friendships, and yet we treat them like they're the unbreakable of all. It's kind of interesting when you think about it. So the cost of holding on is staying in misaligned relationships. I mean, they can slow your growth and prevent you from making space for new aligned connections. And it's really legitimate. Like, this is a real problem. People will hold you back. They don't want you to rise necessarily, which I know sounds harsh because they love you. But when you start to rise, that means you might leave them. So they have fears about you.
Or it challenges them
and
to
it challenges them to rise.
Yeah.
They're not ready. Yeah. And that's where you get into some real ickiness. And I know I've certainly had this experience more recently than I'd like to say, but it's really there. It's a real problem. Um, so, we need to reframe the narrative. Letting go is not abandonment. It's about honoring the role someone played in your life and recognizing when their part in your journey is complete. We do see a lot of memes out there. Hopefully some of them are sinking in for people. It's not everybody's meant to stay in your life. Like they're meant to be there for a period of time that fosters certain healing and certain growth. And then it's okay to move on from them, because now you're going to meet new people and they're going to foster a different level.
There's one that's like, I think, speaking of memes, I know there's one that's like refers to people being like trees. And it's like some people are I'm probably going to butcher this, but it's like some people are the roots. Some people are, and like then they're there for like a long haul kind of thing.
Yeah.
Other people are, and once again I'm paraphrasing, but it's like other people are like the leaves or the fruit.
Yeah.
Or
that have to be shed.
Yeah, like just different.
And it's true. Yeah. It's true. Relationships can be beautiful, even if they are temporary. And I mean, that's important to remember with everything. Like, even when you do have a relationship like a marriage that, ends, even if it ends in a very sad and unfortunate way, don't allow the negative necessarily, unless it's absolutely, needed for your own healing and boundaries. But like, don't discredit the beauty that once was there and the love that was all very real. And that's okay to treasure that. Like you should, because how beautiful that you formed that connection and you allowed someone in. That's a beautiful thing that should always be recognized. And celebrate the love and the lessons and growth that those relationships brought, because every time it's a stepping stone into your own evolution. It's okay to feel sadness and gratitude at the same time. Like, that's important. It's okay to grieve these relationships and admire the beauty of them. And then the flip side of this is that new people bring in new growth, and new connections reflect your healed, evolving self and help you expand even further, which is so awesome. It's such an amazing thing when you start to realize these new connections are like how different they are, and how it's pushing you to grow more. And I think it's just such a beautiful process, and trust that every ending creates room for new beginnings. So, you know, I don't know how this this episode may have, hit some like little points that are, brought up some things for you listeners, but I always recommend journaling so much. And this is a big one, because it's really hard, really, really challenging for people to let go of others. So definitely a good episode to journal, to reflect on, and just kind of think about really where are your relationships true to who you are right now, and do they allow you the growth that you crave, and do they foster the person that you are becoming. And if they don't, maybe it's time to sit down and have some conversations with those people, and who knows where it will go.
Yeah.
Right? Because maybe that's all they need is a conversation, so that they feel the courage to start growing along with you, or a little conversation of your boundaries, so that they can respect your space and stop making you feel, like you're your old self, not allowing you the space to grow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think focusing on your own healing and growth is essential. Being open to meeting new people who align with your current values and energy, essential. And remembering letting go isn't about erasing the past. It's about honoring it while embracing the future. So in closing, letting go isn't easy, but it's one of the most loving things you can do for yourself and for the people you're letting go of. Truly, like, They need to be let go too, because you're tethering each other. And that's something I don't think that we really, understand fully, is that just as much as they're holding you back, you're holding them back. They need to go meet new. When you let them go, when you're the brave enough person to let them go, it makes space for them to go and meet other people that are going to help them grow. Right.
Yeah.
So, because relationships are meant to evolve just like we are. Trust that your growth will always guide you towards the connections you need. And remember, it's not about losing people, it's about creating space for the relationships that truly nourish your soul. And that's really about that. That's what the journey is all about, is allowing becoming more and more soul aligned, and allowing the space for soul alignment. And that's a constant process as we go through this journey called life.
As we go through this life.
This life, yeah. So, and you've been listening to Unraveling with Jamie and July. This is a little podcast we do each week, and we take deep dives into conversations that people aren't necessarily having. Maybe some are out there. I hope they are. I'd like to think they are. And you can also find us in our newsletter, which you can access. It's easy to find on our Instagram accounts, our personal and our joint account for Unraveling This Life. And in our newsletter, it's pretty cool because it only comes twice a month. So it's not bombarding your inbox by no means. And it's a nice little treat in your inbox. And you can also see what we're up to, what the latest episodes of the podcast are, and how you might be able to benefit from working with us further, as we are both healers and we have lots of healing to offer.
Yes. And all of those links are in the show notes.
Yeah.
For the episodes of how to connect with us and
good.
As you to the newsletter and all of that.
As you can tell, Jamie does all the show notes.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, if you want to explore our Instagram too, that's really cool. So
yeah.
We have some fun stuff
linked there too.
Well, yeah, we have some fun stuff though on Instagram.
And I think it's going to get funner. Is that a word? Funner?
It's not, but I like it.
I'm making it one.
I like the word funner.
There's a new game we could play at the beginning of the podcast episode, creating new words.
That is a game we could play. I create lots of new words.
Yeah.
So yeah, we hope that you are having a beautiful day. If no one has told you today, we love you. You are enough. You are worthy. And until next time, be kind.